Our parents are our first protectors and teachers. Their job is to take care of us, but sometimes we disagree, especially as we get older. But the parent-child relationship isn't always perfect for everyone. Sometimes it ends in tragedy, especially in the comic book world. Even worse, sometimes parents are tragically offed by the superheroes themselves. Before we get started on our list, be sure to click that subscribe button to keep up to date with all our latest videos.
Too late, Blade.
Blade. Vampires have come in and out of the limelight in terms of popularity.
Peter, wake up.
But before vampires were glittery and inhumanly beautiful, they were terrifying killers from our nightmares.
We're vampires. We don't put down towns.
Some vampires do.
In 1973, Marvel Comics introduced a vampire hunter named Blade. In the Tomb of Dracula number 10, this vampire hunter had a vendetta against all bloodsuckers. Sure, he's not the first, but what made him special was that he was a vampire-human hybrid. His mother has a long history of her own, but when she was in labor with her son, she was forced to seek medical attention. The doctor who came in to help, Deacon Frost, actually turned out to be a bloodthirsty, ravenous vampire who feasted on her as she gave birth. He passed down enzymes that altered the baby, making him kissed by a vampire as opposed to converted. Along with the abilities that were passed on to Blade was immortality and immunity to the worst parts of vampirism. Technically, it was the vampire who killed his mom, but if it wasn't for his birth, his mother probably wouldn't have crossed paths with the vampire doctor. So he's partially responsible, and definitely carries a sense of guilt with him that fuels his revenge against vampires.
Because I know what he comes from. He is his father's son. Every last molecule of him.
The Hulk. Our favorite raging green giant has finally found his place in Hollywood. Currently, Mark Ruffalo plays Bruce Banner and the Hulk in the MCU. The MCU suggests that the Hulk is a product of Banner's own research. Interesting, as it's tied to trying to replicate the super soldier serum that created Captain America. But in the comics, it said that the Hulk was created by a gamma bomb explosion. And even more recently, the comics have changed that. Sure, the explosion turned him big, green, and mean, but apparently the raging persona of the Hulk was already inside Bruce Banner. This rage was caused by being abused at the hand of his father, Brian Banner. He believed that he had radiation poisoning and in turn passed it on to his son, then believing his son was cursed. On one occasion, Brian killed his wife while she was trying to protect Bruce and later ended up in a mental hospital. Brian was released 15 years later but still had delusions. Go figure. Bruce and Brian ended up fighting in the cemetery while Bruce visited his mother's gravesite. During the fight, Bruce knocked his father into his mother's tombstone headfirst, killing him. At first, Bruce believed it to be an accident, but later came to realize he did it on purpose. That's some dark stuff.
Don't make the same mistakes I did. Got it?
Yeah.
Or else the whole world tastes like Mama June after hot yoga.
Wade Wilson. Our favorite fourth wall breaking anti-hero and merc with a mouth has a pretty dark life. However, Deadpool's past has been a bit difficult and confusing, which is not surprising, but it's mostly due to the fact that he's lied, forgotten, or has used his creative brain to imagine changes to his own history. Sometimes his story was even changed just because there was something funnier to add. Now you can see how this would make things complicated, right? At first, Wade Wilson's dad was a deadbeat who left him as a boy and therefore never knew him. There was also a version where he grew up with an abusive father who raised him after his mother died of cancer. The father was later taken out by one of Wade's friends.
Love is a beautiful thing.
In the latest continuity, Wade Wilson's father, Thomas Wilson, was introduced in 2000's Deadpool number 45 as a stranger Deadpool ran into years later in a bar. Now, if we move forward to 2014's Deadpool number 34, part of the original Sin storyline involves Deadpool getting put under some mind control influence. His mind was manipulated by one of his enemies called the Butler, who then ordered him to burn his mother and father in their beds, not knowing at all who they were.
James, there are things you don't understand.
Wolverine. Wolverine is the iconic and deadly superhero who's known for his razor-sharp claws, healing abilities, and wicked sideburns, among many other things. He was a hit from the beginning since his inception in the 70s, but there was actually a time where there was very little known about his early life. He's one of the more popular heroes, especially on screen. He's been in the film world for almost 2 decades, so naturally we've been wondering what his story was. And as the films were evolving, Marvel decided to jump ahead of them and beat them to the original story. In 2002, Marvel released a miniseries called Origin, which finally gave us a glimpse of where Wolverine came from. We learn that his real name is James Howlett, who was the extremely sickly son of plantation owners in the 19th century Canada.
Father!
Stay where you are, James.
Father!
The groundskeeper, Thomas Logan, killed John Howlett, James's father, one tragic night. It was then that the sick boy's claws sprouted from his knuckles, and he killed Logan and his mother in a fit of rage. Turns out that groundskeeper Logan was his real biological father. The basics of this story were adapted for the X-Men Origins Wolverine film, with a few changes, of course. Blackbolt. One thing that separates the Inhumans from the rest of the Marvel Universe is the Royal Monarchy. They are a technologically advanced people whose home is on Attilan. Since the Inhumans were introduced in 1965 in Fantastic Four number 45, Blackbolt has been the king of the Inhumans, and there's no one more devoted to the Inhuman species than he is. For many fans, Blackbolt's defining characteristic is his voice, which is considered one of the more tragic superpowers of all times.
You have the power, Blackbolt. Sooner or later, you're going to have to decide how to use it.
His voice is actually so destructive that even a whisper could topple a whole mountain range. He had to go through some intense mental preparation to control his voice, even when in pain or asleep. He was exposed to the Terrigen Mists as an embryo instead of later in life, and as a result of the experiments by his parents, both members of the ruling council of the Inhuman city of Attilan. The exposure heightened his physical attributes to the point that no Inhuman can stop him. When he got older, Bolt's younger brother Maximus struck a deal with the Kree Empire.
Actually, I'm personal friends with their commander.
In order to try and stop the Kree ship from leaving, Blackbolt used his voice. The ship crashed and the debris landed in the city, killing members of the council, including his parents.
2 people in a room can get more done than 100, unless you need to move a piano. Baba, yeah.
Black Panther. When we saw Black Panther step in on the big screen in Captain America: Civil War, we started wishing for his own solo feature. Thankfully, he has an up-and-coming solo in 2018. Black Panther is one of the most prominent African-American superheroes in comic books. He's a fierce warrior with high-tech weapons and trained in many different fighting styles. He is also a ruler of his native country as he's the King of Wakanda. Royal, honorable leader, wise, super, and amazing warrior. Can he get any cooler? Yes, he can. He's fought alongside the Avengers and also fought crime and protected New York when he temporarily stepped in for Daredevil. He also constantly defended Wakanda from threats outside the country as well as within. But before he became Black Panther, T'Challa was born as the son of the previous Black Panther and King T'Chaka. As for his mother, T'Challa never got the opportunity to meet her, as it was revealed in 2016's Black Panther number 7. The Queen of Wakanda, Niamey, died during childbirth. We know that this tragedy wasn't his fault and never his intent. He was an innocent baby after all, but his birth led to her death and earned him a spot on this list.
Aquaman, swift and powerful monarch of the oceans, with ability to summon and command all creatures of the deep.
Aquaman. We have tons of superheroes on land and some who fly, some who travel to other dimensions, and some who even come from other planets. But what about all the water surrounding our planet? Earth is predominantly water, so who's protecting the seas? Well, that would be the king of the oceans, Aquaman. He is an ocean-dwelling hero who first graced the pages of the DC Universe in 1941 in More Fun Comics. He was created as a warrior with powers that allowed him to live in the ocean forever. But he can also jump on land and kick some major bad guy booty. Pretty great, right? Add to that the fact that he's the king of the ocean kingdom Atlantis, and as you may know from the DC films, he's also a founding member of the Justice League. His background gets a bit jumbled up depending on which version you read, but we know he has a human father who was a lighthouse keeper, and an Atlantean queen who was an outcast. In one version, his mother dies after he's born from an illness. In an alternate reality, she dies during childbirth, which, once again, not technically his fault. We wonder what origin story they'll give him in the theatrical version.
You know you gotta pay for that, right? Hey, where's your mommy and daddy, huh?
X-23. When it comes to eliminating parents, X-23 sure does take after her father, or donor, or whatever Wolverine technically is to her. Looks like it's in the genetics or something. Like with most cool heroes with awesome powers, scientists have been trying to copy their success with Wolverine's healing factor. And of course his adamantium skeleton for decades to no avail. Dr. Sutter recruited a renowned mutant geneticist, Dr. Sarah Kinney, and tasked her with creating a clone. Unfortunately, the only sample from Weapon X, aka Wolverine, was damaged, and they couldn't save the Y chromosome, so she suggested creating a female clone. She was denied but went ahead with the plan. She was then forced to act as a surrogate mother and gave birth to X-23. She was raised in captivity and trained to be a weapon, but Dr. Kinney did her best to provide some sort of humanity to her. But she was sent on a special mission and left scarred emotionally. She was given a mission to kill the leader of the Weapon X project, Xander Rice, but he had created a trigger scent to make her lose control and used it on her, which resulted in her killing her mother by accident.
It'll never be over. Trigon will spend every single minute trying to get out of here.
Raven. Fans of the original Teen Titans and the new version of the TV show will remember one of their favorite characters, the gloomy goth girl Raven. She's a dark and mysterious empath who grew up in the Azarath dimension. She's quite powerful, and although sweet in her own way, she remains aloof. She is the daughter of a human, Arella, and a powerful demonic overlord known as Trigon, one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. So what makes Trigon so powerful? He is actually the personification of all kinds of dark energies that have existed since his universe began. When he was born, he destroyed everyone around him. He even destroyed a whole planet when he was just 6 years old. Talk about evil. As a result, his daughter Raven learned to keep her emotions under control because she was afraid of the demonic energy she inherited from Trigon. When Raven's older, she finally comes to understand her father's true nature and teams up with the Teen Titans to trap her dad in an interdimensional prison. But that doesn't stop him from still having control over her psyche. It's not until the souls of Azarath use Raven as a vessel channeled to destroy him that she is finally free from darkness.
I will never forget these words. With great power comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man, a tale as old as time, or at least it feels that way considering how many times we've seen this play through on screen. We know that Peter Parker's parents disappeared when he was young, so the young boy was left to be raised by his loving Aunt May and Uncle Ben. The elderly couple became his surrogate parents and did the best they could to raise him right and teach him to be responsible. Speaking of responsibility, Uncle Ben taught Peter that with
great power comes great responsibility.
Wise words of wisdom, don't you think? They resonated and stayed with Peter forever. But as with most teenagers, Peter went through a bit of a bratty and selfish phase. Add to that being bit by a radioactive spider and gaining superpowers. So what does a teen do? He uses his powers to become a wrestler and make money, of course. But as with life, sometimes our actions have consequences. Pete encountered a thief, and his selfishness let the bandit go. The same thief ended up killing Uncle Ben. Peter was overcome with guilt, rightfully so. He had felt like he killed his own uncle and father figure. But it was this very death that led Peter to seek vengeance for his uncle, and in turn, fight crime.
The end of one thing, the start of something new.
Wow, there you have it, folks. Those were some superheroes who have taken their parents out of the equation. Which one of these did you find the most shocking? Did we miss any? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and share, and make sure you check out some more awesome videos like this one on our playlist. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.